I think a lot of people, including my co-host, as well as my producer, as well as Dunk, and a lot of you guys that watch, tried to tell me that my expectations coming into the season were a little too high. That typically is the case for me. Um, Honestly, specifically over the last 2 or 3 years, I would say. But overall, I did not hate the way the season went, ending in 5-12. Obviously, that record is not one that you want to get too comfortable with. I believe that this team has potential to do a lot more. Even if you go back and look at the games that we competed in this year, we could have easily gone 7-10, 6-11, and even teeter 8-9. However, I'll just kind of say 7-10, just for the sake of the conversation. So I believe there were a lot of missed opportunities this year. However, what I love the most is probably what you guys love the most, and I'm sure this sentiment will be echoed on this cast as well, is the fact that I believe that we have found our franchise quarterback. I believe that we have found our head coach, and I think those two things alone was worth what we had to endure this season, in my opinion. Just because the question was, obviously, is Bryce Young the franchise quarterback? Does Bryce Young have enough? Does he have what it takes to be a franchise leader? Is he our guy? I believe that question was answered. And then with Dave Canales, if you look to him and just the head coaching carousel that this organization has been on over the past, 4, 5, 6 years, whatever the case may be, it is good to go into an off season with some sort of stability. I feel like there has been very rare instances over the past decade that the Carolina Panthers have had stability. Even after Matt Rule signed his contract for 7 years or whatever the case was, after his first season, there were question marks about if he would be returning. And in the second season, it was a very, very similar conversation. Then you get rid of your GM last year and bring in Dan Morgan, et cetera. It's good to have stability. It's good to have stability. We're going to go through the position groups in a second just to give, we'll give a little more insight. But that's kind of how I'm feeling personally just about the season. Those were the positive takeaways that I have, really, is the fact that we do have the answer at those two main positions in head coach and quarterback. And that gives you a solid foundation to build off of.
I mean, just going off of that, I guess I initially had us going, I think 7-10. So we finished 2 games under that, but at a certain point of the season, it just got to a point where you want to see progress. And one of those things was progress at the quarterback position. And I think we've seen a lot of that, especially going into the back end of the season. I mean, at the beginning of the season, none of us predicted that Bryce Young would be benched, but also none of us predicted that, I guess, he would kind of have that kind of year, probably other than Tavian, I guess, because he was champion for MVP conversations. But, I mean, if you just took into, like, his last couple of games, then yes, okay. But at the same time, I don't think none of us predicted him to have the kind of season he did as far as getting benched, then coming back out, looking the way he did, and then we ultimately went in, 5 games total. But there was a lot of progress in a lot of different positions. And like you mentioned, I think quarterback was one of the ones we was looking at the most. And then also, it is nice to see that you have a head coach that is going to stick around for more than 1 year, 2 years, maybe 3 years in Dave Canales. I think he works well with Bryce. And like you were saying in the offseason, I think it's evident that Bryce will succeed in the system that Davis Canales has set for him. So that's something to look forward to. There are a couple other things that were disappointing, like the defense, very underwhelming, which we didn't really think that they would be like a great defense by any stretch of the imagination, but also didn't think they would be the worst in NFL history, which is pretty fucking embarrassing. But, I mean, other than that, there's a lot of things to look forward for going into next season. So I'm excited to see what we can do, especially the draft. We have the number 8 pick as of right now.
Yep.
So it's going to be
11 total picks, I believe. Throughout the draft.
It's going to be exciting to see the way that board shapes up and to see exactly what this front office goes towards, especially knowing that, you need players on defense. Like, this defense is terrible. This defense is bad. But I'm especially happy for, like, the free agents, like what we're going to do in that department. And I know we're going to hit on that a little later in the episode. But, I think we have a chance to make a splash. And I do think that this team will be a very hard team to beat next year. because I don't think we can do anything but get better. Now, you might be able to say, you could possibly get worse, but I just don't see that being the way that Bryce played at the end of the season. So I'm excited.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in the offseason, the goal for me, or what I wanted to see from this team this year, was progress. And I think at all the positions that you invested in, offensive line, wide receivers, quarterback, head coach, you saw progress. Where you didn't see any progress was the parts of the team that you completely neglected, which I'll touch on a little bit later when we get into one of our other topics about free agent targets that I'm looking at this offseason. But everywhere you invested, you saw progress. And I had this team going 7-10 this season, which easily could have been the case. You know, a fumble here, a botched coverage there, whatnot, a drop pass. Yeah, a fumble here, a drop pass there.
Why did you look at me, dog? Go ahead. My bad.
Nah, you're
my
good.
bad.
This team is easily 7-10. And we definitely saw progress in a lot of aspects of this team, especially in particular with Bryce Young, as well as Dave Canales. You know, I really like what I saw from him. That was a guy that we had a lot of question marks going into the season, having never been a head coach. We know he had a pretty decent track record working with Geno Smith and then Baker Mayfield last year, but we really just didn't know what we were getting. It was kind of a big mystery. Didn't know what type of person he was, how he would be able to command a team, how he would be able to lead men. And I think we've got the answer to that question. We've got the answer to our quarterback. We've solved the offensive line issues. Still have my questions and doubts about the wide receiver core, but that's something that I can live with if you're going to tell me that Bryce is going to play the way he played this past year, because I know he'll make some receivers that are not named David Moore better, as we saw with Jalen Coker, who's 6'3". Yeah, I like the progress that we saw from the
Would
team
you like
this year.
to tell people why you had felt the need to throw that in?
Yeah, how the fuck did David Moore catch a straight?
How did he catch a straight, and then why did you have to throw the size in?
David Moore actually had a semi-productive season this year, and I just don't think he's all that good. While he did have a productive season, he's been in the NFL for a long time. There's a reason that he's been in the NFL for a long time, and a lot of people thought this was his first or second year in the league. It's not really a surprise. David Moore is a decent.
They know ball.
Yeah,
that's a name that you've heard a lot.
Fair enough, but I just don't. Again, I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into David Moore.
Okay.
Especially with some of the ability to upgrade at that particular position, and why I said that about Jalen Coker is because we came on here about 4 weeks ago, and I made the statement that Jalen Coker would look like he was about 6'4", 6'5", and then JJ corrected me and said that he was 5'10", just for the report to come.
5'9".
Or 5'9",
No. I didn't say 5'9". I didn't say 5'9".
He said he was 5'10". He said he was 5'10"
I said he was
best.
like 5'11", 6 foot. But go ahead.
No, you said 5'10".
Okay.
And just for the report to come out and confirm that he is in fact 6'3", so I wasn't completely off base in saying that he looked big as hell on the field.
Pause. Shout out to PNP. Shout out to PNP for confirming that.
So
he is in fact 6'3". Every bit of it per quote. Pause again. Are you done?
No, yeah, that was it.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, they hit my season goals, which was progress, and we saw progress from 2-15. Is that what it is? 2-15. Yeah, 2-15 to 5-12. 13.
5-12.
Yeah, we saw progress. So
were you guys disappointed by the amount of progress? Because I know that we can say we saw a lot of progress, but was there any part of you that was like a little disappointed at the progress or lack thereof that we saw? Because I think that a lot of the excitement is coming from Bryce, obviously, the development of Bryce, which, yes, if you isolate Bryce, absolutely phenomenal. But overall, from a team perspective, were you disappointed, satisfied, or kind of in the middle, in between?
I think it's more so as specific players, but I don't know from like a team standpoint. Just because, like I said, I don't think we ever really expected the defense to be good or anything like that. I mean, I guess it was kind of underwhelming that they looked as bad as they did. So I don't know if I was really expecting progress from them. But I mean, if you want to name out specific players as far as like Xavier Legette, Jonathan Brooks, Trevin Wallace, like guys like that, it's kind of like, you wish you would have seen some progress from them guys. just because I think that those are guys that will shape the future of the Carolina Panthers. Like, maybe not now after this season. It's kind of hard for you to look at a Trevin Wallace and be like, okay, he's going to be a future starter or a guy that could serve in like a Frankie Louisville role, because obviously that's kind of what we will be hoping for. I'm not saying that he has they necessarily have the same play style, but I mean, you went and drafted linebackers to replace a Frankie Louisville and guys of that sort. And the same thing with Xavier Legette. Like, he left a lot of things to be desired, so we don't really know exactly like what we're getting from him, so to speak. And then also Jonathan Brooks. Like, obviously he tore his ACL again, so it's guys like that was kind of like, kind of underwhelming when it comes to progress. But I think overall, like, the thing that you needed to establish the most was the quarterback. And I think, like Tavian said, like, the positions you put the most time and spent the most money into, like, it's happy to see that those positions are the ones that panned out and are the ones that made the progress and made the Carolina Panthers essentially who they were going into the season, which was the offensive line and Bryce Young. So,
yeah, the only part about the Panthers season that I was woefully underwhelmed by was the lack of production and just the sheer lack of talent personally that I saw from the rookie class. I think this was a very disappointing rookie class. I know they are rookies, and we all want to give them time. We shot Bryce Bell last season saying the same thing. So we will, and I will give them that same courtesy. I'll give them another year to try to refrain from judgment, but I was not impressed by anything that I saw from this rookie class outside of one undrafted rookie and one drafted in the 5th round, I believe. JT was drafted fourth round. Other than that, though, I saw nothing from this rookie class that I liked. No memorable people. Hopefully Xavier Legette can figure it out. Hopefully Trevin Wallace can figure it out. Jonathan Brooks, conversation for another day, because he won't even be an impact on this team next season, in my opinion. So
which is really scary and nasty.
Yeah, we've beat that. That's kind of like a dead horse. We beat that one into the ground. We all are now in agreement that should not have been the pick in that position given the circumstance of the team. But other than that, like, the defense didn't really underwhelm me, only because I never expected much from the defense anyway. As soon as the 53-man came out, we picked that shit apart, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And then you take into account that they lost their best player in Brown. You lost to Shaq Thompson. Finally JC stays healthy, but there was still a question. Mike Jackson did step up and play very serviceable this year as a cornerback too. We had a lot of questions at safety still. There was still a lot of question marks on that side of the ball for me personally, so I wasn't really underwhelmed by what I saw from the defense given the circumstances of the team this year, being the injuries, and being that you didn't really invest much. Your best pass rusher going into the year was Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, and I mean, just speaking on a rookie class, it's like,
would you like to give a grade after you say what you're going to say?
Yeah, sure.
A letter grade?
Yeah, and I feel like when you go into the draft and you draft these guys, they shouldn't perform in a season that makes you makes you have to go and find other people at that position. So that's the kind of thing that it's like, it's frustrating. And it's like certain things you can't help because Jonathan Brooks, like, it's just like, I mean, damn, like, he fucked off his ACL again. But you could help it because you shouldn't have drafted him there. So, I mean, we can always go back and point to that. And then Xavier Legette, we have guys like JJ and probably a lot of other guys who blame it on injury. But, I mean, yes, and then it's just like, I don't really know, just because the guy had 1 year of, like, good film coming out of college. So it's like.
Yeah, I actually don't see a lot of people defending XL.
Oh, okay. Well, that's even better. So, and then
so
guys
maybe
like.
I'm in the minority in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I really just think that it's because of the risk. I really do. Like, and to just give some pushback on that, I think that's part of our problem. Like, you don't want to have a situation where you draft a guy in the first round and then you're potentially having a conversation about drafting another guy in his same position group in the first round yet again. However, I feel like part of our problem is the lack of depth. So I feel like you can never really have too much talent on a roster, just to give some pushback on that. But I understand what you're saying. If we're isolating the XL situation, I don't believe XL is a wide receiver one at this very time. At this very, I don't think he's an X. I don't know if he's going to be able to do what what this coaching staff and this front office is going to want him to do, unless, again, you go make a deal with somebody or you go sign a free agent. Like I said, we'll have that conversation in a couple of minutes about, the free agents and the whatever wide receivers that have been mentioned and tied to the Carolina Panthers at this time. But, I don't know. But I just want to provide that pushback just a little bit because we do have a depth problem. That's why when Shaq Thompson and Derrick Brown get hurt, you have A'Shawn Robinson step up, but, behind A'Shawn Robinson, you have to, fuck around with Deshaun Williams with all due respect. Because he did have some phenomenal games, but we have a depth issue. There's not enough talent. There's not enough talent on the roster just throughout, 1 through 53.
Right, and just to give pushback on that, though, what makes that particularly alarming with XL is the fact that you did see a undrafted rookie free agent in Jalen Coker come in and, look like he was the first-round talent.
That's very true.
So that's what I feel like is the most alarming about the XL situation, even if you want to say shoot him that bail of, his wrist was fucked off. Okay, cool, but still there was a guy that came in here and outperformed you at your position in your same class and was a undrafted player.
Yeah, and speaking of the depth problem, there's not really a lot of teams who, I feel like you can say everybody has a depth problem because there's really not a lot of teams that can go and, just have, really good players sitting behind other players because you've seen it with, the Lions. Eventually that comes back to bite them in the ass when it's playoff time and when they need to win games when you have fucking 18 to 20 people on IR. That shit is eventually going to catch up with you. Even with, the Dallas Cowboys, they had a ton of injuries as well. And there's not really a lot of guys sitting behind them that can actually replace that talent because they're the next man up for a reason. At a certain point,
There's not enough men to keep coming up.
Yeah, and it's it boils down to you're the next man up for a fucking reason. So it's not a lot of that going around. So I feel like you can say a lot of teams have a depth problem. So I can't even really point to that because, they wouldn't be sitting back behind them if they were actually really good football players with all due respect. And that's just comparing them to other people in the league.
Sure. Good conversation.